Let me share with you a great secret. There are infinite states of consciousness, infinite worlds, infinite realities existing simultaneously in the imagination of God. And you, being God in expression, have access to all of these realities. The state in which you find yourself now is but one of countless states you could occupy. When I speak of parallel realities, I am not speaking theoretically. I am speaking of an absolute law that governs all of creation. The Bible tells us, "In my Father's house are many mansions." These mansions are not physical structures, but states of consciousness, each complete and imperfect in itself. Each state has its own world, its own experiences, its own relationships, its own circumstances. You are at this very moment stationed in a particular state, experiencing the world that corresponds to that state. If you don't like the world you see, then you must change the state from which you view it. You do this not by working on the world, but by working on yourself. Tonight, I will show you how to use your imaginative power to shift from your present state to the state of your desire. For when you learn to move in consciousness, the outer world must follow. For it is only the shadow of your inner activity. Consider what this means. If your desire exists as a reality now in a parallel state, then you don't need to create it. Your task is not to create, but to shift your consciousness to that state where your desire already exists. You need only to enter the state that contains the fulfillment of your desire. How then does one move from one state to another? By the use of your imagination, controlled and directed with purpose and love. For imagination is the bridge between the realities, the vehicle by which you travel from state to state. Let me ask you, what would it be like if your desire were already fulfilled? How would you feel? What would you see? What would you hear? What would you touch? If your desire were true this very moment, how would your inner conversations run? For your inner conversations are perpetually shaping your world. The first step in shifting to your desired reality is to clarify exactly what you want, not the means of achievement, but the end itself. Too many of you focus on the process, the how of achievement, when you should be focusing on the state of fulfillment. Remember, the means will unfold naturally when you have successfully shifted to the state where the end is accomplished. Now, having clarified your desire, you must construct a scene which, if experienced, would imply the fulfillment of your desire. This scene, properly constructed and experienced in your imagination, becomes the bridge between your present state and the state you wish to occupy. The scene must be one that is easily visualized. It should be natural, one that would follow the fulfillment of your desire. It should involve the use of as many senses as possible: sight, sound, touch, taste, and smell. The more senses you can incorporate, the more real your imagined scene becomes. For instance, if your desire is financial abundance, your scene might be a friend congratulating you on your new wealth, shaking your hands firmly, looking into your eyes with genuine pleasure. You would hear their voice, feel their touch, see the smile. You would experience the joy and relief of financial freedom. Having constructed your scene, you must then enter into it through the technique I call revision. Revision is not merely changing your thoughts about a situation. It is changing your perceptual experience of it. You revise by entering so completely into your imagined scene that it feels more real than your physical surroundings. You accomplish this by becoming physically still, closing your eyes to the world of sense and then projecting yourself into your imagine. You must feel the reality of it, react to it emotionally as though it were actually happening here and now. This is not mere visualization or positive thinking as commonly understood. This is an actual entry into another state of consciousness. When properly done, you will feel a shift within yourself, a change in your feeling tone, a new sense of self. This feeling is your signal that the shift has occurred. Now, many will ask, how long must I remain in this state before my outer world conforms to it? The answer varies, for time is relative to the intensity of your desire and the completeness of your imaginative act. Some desires manifest instantly. Others take time to unfold in the world of sense. But remember this, the manifestation begins the moment you successfully shift your state. Seed is planted, and it cannot help but grow into its appointed hour. Your task is not to dig up the seed to see if it's growing, but to remain faithful to your new state, regardless of appearances. The maintenance of your new state is crucial. You must learn to dwell in it, to make it your home. This is where many falter, for they return too quickly to their former state, drawn back by the evidence of their senses and the opinions of others. To maintain your new state, you must discipline your thoughts and inner conversations. You must speak from the state of fulfillment, see from it, think from it, and feel from it. Your entire consciousness must be aligned with the reality of your desire fulfilled. Let me share with you a personal experience. Years ago in New York City, during the Depression, I desired to travel to Barbados to visit my family. I had no money and no means of getting there. But rather than focus on the lack, I constructed a scene of being in my family home in Barbados. Each night as I fell asleep, I would imagine lying in my bed in Barbados, hearing the familiar sounds of the island, feeling the tropical breeze, smelling the distinct fragrance of my childhood home. I would fall asleep in this state, feeling the reality of being in Barbados. Within a few weeks, unexpected series of events unfolded. A friend offered me a ticket, another provided spending money, and soon I found myself actually in Barbados in the very room I had imagined. The outer world had rearranged itself to conform to my inner state. This is the law, and it never fails. But you must apply it with conviction and persist until your new state feels natural to you. For what feels natural to you defines your reality. Now let us delve deeper into the mechanics of this process. When I speak of parallel realities, I am speaking of something more profound than mere possibility. I am speaking of actual worlds, complete in themselves, awaiting your entrance. Think of it this way. God's infinite mind contains all possible states, all possible worlds. They exist now, complete and perfect. Your individual consciousness is like a tuner receiving the signals from the particular freat which is attuned. Change your attunement, and you change your world. This is not philosophy. This is practical metaphysics. This is the art of living deliberately, of choosing your reality rather than accepting one imposed upon you. This is the meaning behind the biblical injunction to choose this day whom we will serve. Many live their entire lives never realizing that they are choosing their reality in every moment by the state of consciousness they occupy. They believe themselves victims of circumstance, subject to the whims of an external world. But I tell you that all causation is from within out, never from without in. The outer world is simply a report, a shadow of your inner activity. Change your inner activity and the outer must follow. For the outer is only the inner projected. Let me give you a specific technique to practice. I call it living from the end. It is the art of assuming the feeling of your wish fulfilled and living within that assumption as though it were already an accomplished fact. Begin by defining your desire clearly. Then ask yourself, how would I feel if this desire now fulfilled? Capture that feeling, that state of consciousness. Then throughout your day, recall this feeling and dwell in it as often as possible. When you wake in the morning before rising from your bed, enter this state. Feel the joy, the relief, the satisfaction of your desire fulfilled. Carry this feeling with you as you go about your day. Return to it whenever your attention is not required elsewhere. At night, as you fall asleep, once again, assume this feeling, for the feeling to only carry as you fall asleep is particularly potent in shaping your subconscious patterns, which in turn shape your outer world. This practice, maintained faithfully, will shift your entire consciousness to the state that corresponds to your desire fulfilled. And as your consciousness shifts, your experience must follow. Remember, though, that this is not a technique of escape from problems. It is a technique of transformation. You are not denying the facts of your present experience. You are transcending them by shifting to a state where different facts prevail. The Bible tells us, "Be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind." This transformation is what we are accomplishing through the disciplined use of imagination. We are literally renewing our minds, changing the content of our consciousness, and thereby changing our world. Now, some of you may be wondering about obstacles. You may be thinking, but what about the conditions of my life? What about the people who oppose me? What about my limitations? I say to you, there are no obstacles in consciousness. In your imagination, you are free from all limitations. And since imagination creates reality, when you change an imagination, the outer world must change to match it. If someone in your life seems to oppose your desire, you need not change them through persuasion or force. Change your concept of them in your imagination. See them as they would be if your desire were fulfilled. Hear them saying what they would say. See them doing what they would do if your desire were now a fact. This inner change in your attitude toward them will produce a corresponding change in their attitude toward you and your desire. For others can only reflect back to you your conception of them. The same applies to circumstances that seem to stand in your way. In your imagination, transcend them. See the end accomplished despite them. Feel the relief and satisfaction of having overcome them. This feeling state will find its way into expression, reorganizing your outer world to match your inner conviction. The world is infinitely responsive to your consciousness. It must be, for it is made of consciousness. The material world that seems so solid and unyielding is actually fluid and plastic to the touch. The touch is direct faith and persistence. Let me tell you of another personal experience that illustrates this principle. When I first came to America, I had a strong desire to share the truth I had discovered, but I had no platform, no audience, no means of reaching people. Rather than focus on these limitations, I began to imagine myself standing before large audiences sharing these truths. In my imagination, I could see the faces of those listening, feel the satisfaction of communicating effectively, hear the applause and words of appreciation afterward. I did this faithfully, night after night, falling asleep in the consciousness of being a successful speaker, reaching thousands with this message of truth. And though the outer circumstances showed no immediate change, I persisted in my imagination. Within a year, I found myself invited to speak to small groups, then larger ones. Opportunities unfolded in ways I could never have planned. People appeared who helped me establish lectures and classes. And eventually, exactly as I had imagined, I was standing before a large audience throughout America, sharing these very principles we discussed tonight. The outer world had reshaped itself to match my inner conviction, not because I manipulated external circumstances, but because I had shifted my state of consciousness. I had moved from one parallel reality, that of being unknown and without a platform, to another reality where I was doing exactly what I desired to do. This same principle applies to every area of your life, relationships, career, finances. There is no aspect of human experience that is not subject to this law. For the law is universal, and it is absolute, as within, so without, as above, so below. Now let's explore another dimension of this truth. Not only do parallel realities exist, but you are continuously moving between them, usually and consciously. Every change in your feeling state, every shift in your concept of self moves you from one reality to another. Most people do this haphazardly, drifting between states according to the circumstances they encounter and their reactions to those circumstances. But you can do it deliberately with purpose and direction. Consider your self-concept. The person you believe yourself to be determines the world you experience. If you believe yourself poor, you will experience a world that confirms this belief. If you believe yourself wealthy, you will experience a world that proves you right. The same applies to health, love, success, and every other aspect of life. Your concept of self is like a frequency to which your experience is attuned. Change the frequency, and you change the broadcast you receive. This is why it is written, "As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he." Your deep, persistent concept of self shakes your entire experience. And you can change this concept through the faithful use of your imagination. Every time you say, "I am," you are defining your reality. I am poor, I am sick, I am unlucky. These statements are not descriptions of facts. They are creative declarations that shape facts. Be careful then what you claim with the powerful words, "I am." Instead, regardless of appearances, dare to claim, "I am wealthy, I am healthy, I am fortunate." Not as affirmations to change your circumstances, but as acknowledgments of what is already true in the reality you wish to enter. For remember, you are not creating these states. They already exist. You are simply choosing which state to occupy. And you choose by your concept of self, by what you claim with "I am." The Bible tells the story of Jacob, who wrestled with an angel and would not let go until the angel blessed him. The angel asked, "What is your name?" And he replied, "Jacob," which means supplier or deceiver. But the angel said, "Your name shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel," which means Prince of God. This story illustrates the transformation of self-concept. Jacob had to let go of his old concept of self as a deceiver and accept a new concept as a Prince of God. And as his concept of self changed, his reality changed with it. You too must wrestle with your angel, your ideal self, until you receive the blessing of a new name, a new concept of self. You must persist until you no longer think of your desire as something to be attained, but as something already attained, already part of your identity. This brings us to another important principle, the role of feeling in the manifestation process. It is not enough to visualize or affirm your desire. You must feel it emotionally, experience it as real. Feeling is the secret, the key that unlocks the door to manifestation. For feeling is the language of the subconscious, and it is the subconscious that connects you to the reality you seek. When you genuinely feel wealthy, the feeling of wealth pervades your consciousness and communicates to your deeper mind that wealth is your reality. Your subconscious then aligns all decisions, perceptions, and actions with this feeling of wealth, bringing it into physical expression. The same applies to health, love, success, and all other desires. The feeling is the secret. Capture the feeling of the wish fulfilled, and you have found the key to manifestation. But not just any feeling will do. The feeling must be consistent with the state you wish to enter. If you desire wealth but continue to feel lack and limitation, you remain in the reality of poverty. Your feeling determines your frequency, and your frequency determines which parallel reality you experience. So in your imaginal work, focus on capturing the feeling tone of your desire fulfilled. What would it feel like to be, have, or do what you desire? Capture that feeling and dwell in it until it becomes your predominant emotional state. This brings us to another principle, the importance of persistence. Manifestation is not always instantaneous. Sometimes the bridge of incidents that leads to your desire requires time to unfold in the world of space and time. During this period, you must persist in your new state despite any contrary evidence from your senses. This is the meaning of faith. The evidence of things not seen. You must be faithful to your imaginable act, dwelling in the reality of your desire fulfilled, even when your senses deny it. Remember the story of Joshua and the Battle of Jericho. The Israelites were commanded to march around the walls of Jericho for 7 days, and on the 7th day the walls fell. This story symbolizes the persistence required in consciousness before the outer walls of circumstance crumble. You too must march around the walls of your present limitations, faithful to your vision until those walls collapse and reveal the promised land of your desire. Many abandon their imaginal work too soon. They try it for a day or two, see no immediate results, and return to their former state. But manifestation follows cosmic law, not human impatience. The seed planted in consciousness needs time to germinate before it appears in the outer world. As Jesus said, first the blade, then the ear, then the full corn in the ear. There is an orderly process of manifestation that unfolds according to its own timing. Your task is to remain faithful to the end, to persist in your new state until it externalizes itself. This persistence requires discipline, for the mind tends to wander back to familiar patterns. You must train your attention to dwell on your desire fulfilled, to reject the evidence of your senses when it contradicts your vision. Each time your mind slips back to the old state, gently bring it back to the new. Each time doubt arises, counter it with the feeling of your wish fulfilled. Eventually, through persistence, the new state becomes your default reality, and manifestation follows naturally. There is another principle I wish to share with you tonight, one that is often overlooked in discussions of manifestation. That is the principle of detachment, or what I call divine indifference. After you have done your imaginal work, after you have shifted your state and captured the feeling of your wish fulfilled, you must release it. You must let go of anxiety, of constant checking to see if it's working, of obsessive focus on results. This detachment is not apathy or abandonment of your desire. Rather, it is supreme confidence that what is done in consciousness is done in reality and needs no further effort on your part. I think of a farmer who plants a seed. He does not dig it up every day to see if it's growing. He plants it, waters it, and then goes about his business, confident that the laws of nature will bring his harvest in due season. Similarly, you plant the seed of your desire in consciousness through your imaginal act. Then you water it with persistence in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. But then you must trust the process, going about your daily life with confidence that your harvest is assured. This divine indifference is the mark of true faith. It shows to truly believe in the reality of your imaginal act, so much so that you can release all anxiety about its manifestation. Jesus demonstrated this when he thanked God for having heard him before Lazarus emerged from the tomb. He did not thank God after seeing the results. He thanked him before, showing complete confidence that what was done in consciousness was already an accomplished fact. You too must develop this confidence, this divine indifference to results. Plant your seed, water it faithfully, and then release it to the perfect law that never fails. Now let us address some practical aspects of shifting realities. Many ask me, how often should I engage in this imaginal work? The answer depends on the individual and the desire. For some desires, a single intense imaginal act is sufficient. The state is entered so completely with such conviction that no repetition is necessary. The shift occurs in that moment and manifestation follows. For others, particularly those with deeply entrenched contrary beliefs, daily practice may be necessary. You may need to repeatedly enter your desired state until it becomes more familiar than your former state. The key is not frequency, but depth. One deeply felt, completely real, imaginal experience is worth more than 100 shallow visualizations. It is better to enter your desired state deeply once a day than to attempt it superficially 10 times. Quality, not quantity, determines the effectiveness of your imaginal work. Seek depth of feeling, completeness of experience, rather than repetition or duration. Another question often asked is, can I work on multiple desires simultaneously? Yes, you can, but with caution. The mind divided against itself cannot stand. If your desires are compatible, existing harmoniously within the same state of consciousness, you can indeed pursue them together. But if they require different states, different concepts of self, it is better to focus on one at a time. Master the art of shifting to one reality before attempting to enter another. Remember, too, that some desires contain others within them. If you desire wealth for the freedom it will bring, focus on the feeling of freedom directly. If you desire a romantic partner for the love you would experience, focus on the feeling of being loved. Often the greater state contains the lesser within it. Now, what about desires that seem impossible? What about the healing of conditions deemed incurable? The achievement of goals considered beyond reach? The attainment of what the world calls miracles? I tell you that in consciousness there are no limitations. All states exist now, including states where the impossible is natural and normal. Your task is not to create what does not exist. It is to enter a state where what you desire already exists. Remember the words of Christ. With God all things are possible, and you are God in expression. For God becomes your consciousness, is God consciousness, limited only by your acceptance of limitation. So do not be dismayed by the seeming impossibility of your desire. In the reality you seek to enter, it is not only possible, it is already accomplished. Your task is to shift your consciousness to that reality, to enter the state where the impossible is already done. This is the true meaning of prayer. Prayer is not beseeching an external God for favors. It is claiming what is already yours in a parallel reality. It is shifting your consciousness to the shape where your desire is fulfilled and then giving thanks for its fulfillment. As Jesus taught, when you pray, believe that you have received and you shall receive. Note the tense. Believe that you have received. Past tense. Not that you will receive, but that you have already received. This is entering the state where your desire is already fulfilled. This understanding transforms prayer from supplication to recognition, from asking to accepting, from future hope to present reality. It is the prayer of thanksgiving for what is already accomplished in consciousness, though not yet visible to the senses. Now, as we approach the conclusion of our discussion, let me emphasize one final principle. The importance of living from your new state, not merely visiting it occasionally during meditation or visualization. Many make the mistake of treating their imaginal work as a separate activity from their daily life. They enter their desired state for a few minutes each day, then return to their former state for the remaining hours. This divided consciousness cannot produce the results you seek. You must learn to live from your new state, to make it your home, to speak and act and think from it throughout your day. This means watching your thoughts, your words, your reactions. When you catch yourself thinking from your old state, gently shift back to the new. When you find yourself speaking as the person you no longer wish to be, correct your speech to align with your new identity. In every moment, you have the opportunity to choose which reality you occupy. Choose consciously, choose in alignment with your desire, and remember that this choice is made not just in formal meditation, but in every thought, every word, every reaction throughout your day. The state from which you live determines the reality you experience. So live from the state of your desire fulfilled. Make it your dwelling place, your habitual consciousness, your default reality. Do this, and you will find yourself shifting into parallel reality where your desire is no longer a desire but an experience, no longer a future hope but a present fact. In closing, let me remind you of the words of Scripture. Be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. This transformation is what we have discussed tonight. The shift from one reality to another through the renewing, the changing of your mind. You are not bound to the reality you now experience. You are free to choose any reality you desire, for all realities exist now in the mind of God, which is your own wonderful human imagination. So choose wisely. Choose the reality that reflects your highest aspirations, your deepest desires, your true nature as a divine being having a human experience. Choose, and through the faithful use of your imagination, enter fully into the reality of your choice. Do this, and you will discover the truth of what I have shared with you tonight. Parallel realities exist, and you have the power to shift into the one that fulfills your heart's desire. Remember always, your imagination is God in action. Use it lovingly, use it wisely, use it faithfully, and all things are possible to you. For imagination creates reality, and the reality you experience is the outpicturing of the state you occupy in consciousness. May the God in you, which is your own wonderful human imagination, guide you into the reality of your fulfilled desire. And may you use this power with love, with wisdom, and with faith for the blessing of yourself and all mankind. The secret I wish to impart to you this evening is this: only 1 minute of properly directed consciousness is required to set in motion the forces that can manifest even the seemingly impossible in your world. 1 minute of perfect imaginative control can birth miracles that defy all logical explanation. Many of you have traveled great distances to be here tonight, seeking answers, seeking transformation. You have tried countless methods, followed numerous teachers, and yet the fulfillment of your desires remains elusive. I say to you now, cease your searching in the external world. The kingdom you seek is within you, and it requires but a moment of proper attention to unlock its boundless treasures. When I speak of 1 minute, I am not speaking in terms of compromise or limitation. Rather, I am revealing to you the tremendous power that resides in a perfectly concentrated moment of consciousness. For time, as you understand it in your waking state, is merely an illusion, a creation of your own wonderful human imagination. In the realm of true creation, in the realm of imagination, there is no time. There is only the eternal now, pregnant with infinite possibilities. And it is in this eternal now that all your desires already exist as accomplished facts. Your task is not to create what you desire, but to claim it as already yours through the controlled direction of your imagination. Consider this fundamental truth. Your consciousness, your awareness of being is God. The Bible declares, I am that I am. This is not speaking of a deity removed from you, dwelling in some distant heaven. This I am is your fundamental awareness of existence, your consciousness, and it is the one and only created power in the universe. When you say I am, you are declaring the name of God. And whatever you attach to this divine declaration becomes the condition, the state you experience. If you say I am sick, I am poor, I am unwanted, you are using the creative power of the universe to manifest these very states. But equally, when you declare, I am wealthy, I am loved, I am successful, even when all appearances contradict these statements, you are engaging the same divine power to bring these conditions into your experience. The 1 minute I speak of is a minute of complete immersion in the feeling of your wish fulfilled. It is a minute in which you close the doors of your senses to the present limitations that surround you and enter fully into the imaginal scene that implies the fulfillment of your desire. In that minute, properly employed, you can rewrite the script of your life. Let me share with you an experience of one of my students that illustrates this principle perfectly. This gentleman had been unemployed for nearly 2 years. His savings were depleted, his confidence shattered, and his family was on the verge of destitution. Every job interview ended in rejection. The external facts of his life painted a picture of hopelessness. I instructed him to take 1 minute, just 1 minute before falling asleep each night, to feel as though he were already employed in a position that gave him satisfaction and financial abundance. I told him not to visualize the process of getting the job, but rather to feel the naturalness of already having it. He was to imagine a scene that implied the fulfillment of this desire. Perhaps a friend congratulating him on his new position, or the feeling of depositing his ample paycheck, or the satisfaction of contributing meaningfully to his workplace. The scene itself was not important. What mattered was the feeling of the wish fulfilled, the conviction that what he desired was already his. For several nights, he practiced this exercise faithfully. On the 5th day, he received a phone call from a company he had never applied to. A mutual acquaintance had recommended him for a position a position that perfectly matched his skills and paid considerably more than he had ever earned before. Within a week, he was employed. What 2 years of external effort could not accomplish, 5 minutes of properly directed imagination achieved effortlessly. Was this a coincidence? Was it luck? I tell you, it was neither. It was law. The law were your own being made manifest. For when you enter into an imaginal scene and make it real through the power of feeling, you have activated forces beyond your conscious understanding, forces that reality to conform to your dominant impression. The scriptures tell us faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. This faith is not mere wishful thinking or intellectual acceptance of a doctrine. Faith is the feeling of possession, the assurance that what is not yet visible to your mortal eye already exists in the reality of your imagination. And your imagination, being God in action within you, cannot fail to objectify that which you have faithfully embodied in feeling. Some of you may be thinking, but Wayne, 1 minute seems too short a time to change the conditions of my life that have persisted for years. To this I would say you underestimate the power of your own consciousness. It is not the duration of time spent in your imaginal act that determines its efficacy, but the intensity of feeling, the completeness of your immersion in the state desire. A single match properly struck can set an entire forest ablaze. Similarly, a single moment of perfectly focused imagination suffused with the feeling tone of reality can set in motion the forces that will inevitably result in the manifestation of your desire. Regardless of how impossible it may seem to your rational mind, the great secret that the mystics and sages have always known is that creation is finished. All that you could ever desire to be, do, or have already exists in what I call the infinite states of consciousness. Your journey is not one of creating anew, but of selecting and embodying the state that corresponds to your desire. And this selection is done through the faculty of attention controlled by your imagination. When I instruct you to take 1 minute to feel yourself into the state of your wish fulfilled, I am giving you the key to unlocking the treasure house of infinity. For in that 1 minute, if properly employed, you transcend time itself. You step out of the limitations of your current state and enter a new state of consciousness. And your outer world must reshape itself to mirror this inner change. There was a woman in one of my lectures some years ago who had been diagnosed with an incurable heart condition. The physicians had given her perhaps 6 months to live. After hearing me speak on this principle, she decided to take 1 minute each day to feel the joy and gratitude of being perfectly healthy. She imagined hearing her doctor say, "I cannot understand it. Your heart shows no sign of disease whatsoever." She felt the relief, the boundless gratitude, the sheer joy of this pronouncement. 3 months later, upon her regular examination, her doctor was baffled. The test showed no trace of the previous condition. Further examinations confirmed that her heart was functioning perfectly. The medical community called it a spontaneous remission and unexplainable healing, but she and I knew better. It was the perfect working of law. She had selected a different state of consciousness, and her body conformed to that selection. You see, the outer world is nothing more than the projection of your inner assumptions. Change the assumption, and you change the projection. It cannot be otherwise, for consciousness is the only reality, and your assumptions determine which state of consciousness you occupy. The 1 minute practice I am giving you this evening is so simple that many will dismiss it as too elementary to produce significant results. Yet its very simplicity is what makes it so powerful. You need no special equipment, no esoteric knowledge, no years of disciplined practice. You need only your imagination and the willingness to feel the naturalness of your desire fulfilled. Here is how you employ this 1 minute practice. First, clarify what you truly desire, not the means to the fulfillment, but the end itself. If you desire wealth, what does wealth mean to you? Is it a specific sum in your bank account? Is it the freedom to travel? Is it the ability to help others financially? Clarify the essence of your desire. Next, create a scene that would imply the fulfillment of this desire. If your desire is for perfect health, perhaps imagine a friend commenting on how vibrant and energetic you appear. If your desire is for harmonious relationship, perhaps imagine yourself and your beloved sharing a moment of perfect understanding and joy. The scene should be brief, easily visualized, and imply that your desire is already fulfilled. Then set aside 1 minute, preferably just before sleep, when your mind is naturally relaxed and receptive, and completely immerse yourself in this scene. Do not merely visualize it as if watching a movie. Enter into it fully. Be a participant, not a spectator. Feel the solidity of objects you would touch in this scene. Hear the sounds that would be present. Most importantly, feel the emotions that would be yours if this imaginal act were your present reality. For that 1 minute, let nothing disturb your concentration. If your attention wanders, gently bring it back to your scene. Infuse the scene with the absolute conviction that this is now reality. Feel the naturalness, the off-course of your desire fulfilled. Then release the scene completely. Do not spend the rest of your day wondering when or how your desire will manifest. Remember, in the reality of imagination, which is the only reality, your desire is already fulfilled. The outer manifestation is merely the shadow, the echo of what you have already accepted as real in consciousness. Let me tell you of another student who applied this principle to what seemed an impossible situation. This gentleman was in his late 52nds and had been passed over for promotion repeatedly in favor of younger colleagues. He had specialized knowledge that was valuable to his company, but management saw him as too close to retirement to invest in his advancement. After learning this principle, he took 1 minute each night to feel the satisfaction of being called into his supervisor's office and being informed of his promotion to regional director, a position 2 levels above his current role. He felt the handshake, heard the congratulatory words, felt the surge of validation that would accompany such an event. Within 3 weeks, a corporate restructuring was announced. The regional offices were being reorganized, and to everyone's surprise, including his own, he was appointed regional director. When he spoke with the executive who had selected him for the role, he was told, "We need someone with your specific experience and knowledge base to guide this transition." The decision became obvious once we reviewed the requirements. What appeared impossible, a double promotion for a man considered too senior for advancement, manifested effortlessly once he had planted the seed in consciousness through his 1 minute imaginal act. The Bible tells us the kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed which a man took and planted in his field. Though it is the smallest of all seeds, yet when it grows, it is the largest of garden plants. Your 1 minute imaginal act is this mustard seed, seemingly insignificant in it, is brevity yet containing within it the full power of creation, which, when planted in the fertile soil of your consciousness, must grow into the full manifestation of your desire. Many of you have been taught that worthwhile achievements require struggle, that you must earn your good through labor and sacrifice. This is the thinking of the world, and it has kept humanity in bondage for centuries. I am offering you freedom from this bondage through the recognition that consciousness, not action, is the foundational created power. Right action will follow naturally from right consciousness. When you have truly assumed the feeling of your wish fulfilled, you will be automatically guided to take whatever steps are necessary for its manifestation in the outer world. But these actions will not be the strained efforts of someone trying to make something happen. They will be the natural, almost effortless expressions of your state of being. Some of you may be wondering about timing, how long you ask between my imaginal act and its fulfillment in the outer world. This is a question that cannot be answered with precision, for it depends on many factors. The naturalness of the state to your particular consciousness, the degree to which your desire conforms to what I call the law of assumption, and the time required for the reshaping of external circumstances. But know this, the manifestation will occur precisely the right moment in what Scripture calls the fullness of time. Your task is not to be concerned with when, but to remain faithful to the assumption that your desire is already fulfilled. For the very concern about timing betrays a lack of faith in the reality of your imaginal act. I have had experiences where manifestation occurred within hours of my imaginal act, and others where months passed before the seed I had planted flowered into outer reality. But in every case, the manifestation came not because I made it happen through anxious monitoring, but because the law of consciousness is infallible. What you assume to be true with feeling must objectify itself in your world. You might ask, can this principle be applied to seemingly impossible situations, to the healing of supposedly incurable diseases, to the transformation of seemingly fixed circumstances, to the manifestation of desires that reason says cannot be fulfilled? And I answer you with an emphatic yes. For what appears impossible to your rational mind is merely a limitation imposed by your current beliefs about what is possible. When you shift your consciousness through the power of your controlled imagination, you transcend these limitations. You align yourself with the creative power that fashioned the universe. And to this power, which is your own wonderful human imagination, nothing is impossible. I know a man who was told by multiple medical specialists that he would never walk unassisted again after a devastating accident. following the principle I am sharing with you tonight, he spent 1 minute each day feeling the naturalness, the joy of walking freely, feeling the ground beneath his feet, experiencing the ease of movement that had been his before the accident. Against all medical prognosis, within 6 months he was walking without assistance. His physicians were baffled, attributing his recovery to some anomaly in their initial diagnosis, but he knew the truth. He had selected a different state of consciousness, and his body had reshaped itself to conform to this new selection. This principle applies not only to individual transformation, but to the reshaping of relationships as well. If you are experiencing discord with another person, do not try to change them through external effort or persuasion. Instead, take your 1 minute to imagine an interaction with this person that embodies the harmony you desire. Feel the naturalness of understanding between you, the ease of communication, the mutual respect and appreciation. Do this faithfully, and you will be amazed at the transformation that occurs. Not because you have manipulated the other person, but because you have transformed your own consciousness regarding the relationship. And since all relationships exist in consciousness, the outer expression of the relationship must conform to your inner assumption. A woman once came to me in great distress over her marriage. For years, her husband had been emotionally distant, critical, and en fait. They had tried counseling without success, and she was contemplating divorce as her only option for happiness. I instructed her to take 1 minute before sleep each night to feel the joy and gratitude of being in a loving, harmonious marriage with this same man. I told her not to imagine a different man or a different marriage. But this same relationship transformed by her shift in consciousness. She imagined her husband looking at her with love and appreciation, speaking words of affection, sharing moments of genuine connection. She felt the relief, the happiness, the fulfillment of being in such a relationship. Within 3 weeks, subtle changes began to appear in her husband's behavior. He became more attentive, less critical. He began initiating conversations rather than retreating into silence. Within 2 months, their marriage had transformed to such a degree that she could hardly believe this was the same relationship that had caused her such anguish. Did her 1 minute practice somehow control or manipulate her husband against his will? Not at all. What it did was shift her consciousness regarding the relationship, and since consciousness is the only reality, the outer picture, including her husband's behavior, had to adjust to reflect this inner change. This principle of the 1 minute imaginal act applies with equal power to conditions that appear to involve multiple individuals or complex social structures. If you desire a particular position in your company, do not concern yourself with the politics of advancement or the competition from others. Take your 1 minute to feel the satisfaction, the sense of accomplishment, the naturalness of already occupying that position. If you seek financial abundance in a challenging economic environment, do not focus on the statistics of scarcity or the limitations of your current income. Use your 1 minute to feel the security, the freedom, the joy of having abundant resources regardless of what your bank statement currently shows. The outer circumstances, no matter how apparently fixed or immutable, are but shadows, reflections of past assumptions. Change the assumption in your 1 minute practice, and the reflection must change in accordance with this new assumption. This is not wishful thinking. It is the operation of immutable law. Many spiritual traditions teach that creation is complete, that all possible states and conditions already exist in what might be called a fourth dimensional reality. Your task is not to create what you desire, but to select through the power of your focused imagination the particular state that corresponds to your desire, and to enter that state through the feeling of its reality. This is what Scripture means by "before you call, I will answer." Your desire in its fulfilled state already exists as a present fact in consciousness. Your imaginal act is not creating it anew, but claiming what already exists in the realm of infinite possibility. The story of the fig tree in the Gospel provides a perfect illustration of this principle. Jesus, seeing a fig tree without fruit, spoke to it, saying, "No man eat fruit of thee hereafter forever." The disciples noted that the tree appeared unchanged at that moment. But the following day, as they passed by, they saw that the fig tree had withered from the roots. This is how your 1 minute imaginal act operates. In the moment of your focused imagination, you may see no outer change in your circumstances, but the seed has been planted. The root has been established in consciousness, and the outer manifestation must follow as surely as the withering of the fig tree followed Jesus' word. Some of you may be thinking, but I have tried visualization before without results. To this I would say there is a world of difference between mere visualization as a mental exercise and the complete immersion in the feeling of the wish fulfilled that I am describing to you tonight. Visualization without feeling is sterile and powerless. It is the feeling that gives life to your imaginable act. The feeling of naturalness, of readiness, of complete acceptance that what you are imagining is now reality. In that feeling lies the transformative power that reshapes your outer world. Moreover, many who practice visualization continue to grant reality to their current imitations. They see their visualization as something that may happen in the future if they are persistent enough or lucky enough. This divided consciousness, one part affirming the desired state, another part affirming the reality of its absence, neutralizes the creative power of their imaginal act. When I have shut you to take 1 minute to feel the wish fulfilled, I am asking you to temporarily but completely set aside your awareness of its absence in your outer world. For that 1 minute, you must grant your imaginal at the same degree of reality, the same sense of solidity and naturalness that you normally grant to your physical surroundings. This requires practice, for we have been conditioned since childhood to trust the evidence of our senses above all else. But with persistence, you will develop the ability to immerse yourself so completely in your imaginal scene that for the duration of your practice, it is more real to you than the physical world around you. And when you achieve this state, even for 1 minute, you have planted a seed that cannot fail to flower into manifestation, for consciousness is the only reality. And what you have made real in consciousness must by law become real in your outer experience. Let me share with you one more illustration of this principle in action. A dear friend of mine had a lifelong dream of owning a particular type of home in a specific neighborhood. A neighborhood where properties rarely came on the market and they did commanded prices far beyond her financial reach. By all rational assessment, her desire was impossible to fulfill. I instructed her to take 1 minute each day to feel the joy of already living in this home. Not to visualize how she might acquire it or to worry about the financing, but simply to feel the satisfaction of ownership, to feel herself moving through the rooms, enjoying the garden, welcoming friends to this beloved space. For several weeks, she practiced faithfully, and then, as often happens when the seed has been properly planted, she largely forgot about her formal practice, as the feeling of ownership became natural to her consciousness. 6 months later, she was contacted by an elderly woman who owned precisely the type of home my friend had been imagining in exactly the neighborhood she desired. The woman who was moving to another state to be near her children had specific ideas about who should live in her home. She wanted someone who would love it as she had, who would maintain its character and beauty. Through a series of circumstances that appeared coincidental, but were in fact the natural outworking of consciousness, this woman offered my friend the opportunity to purchase the home at significantly below market value with financing terms that made it accessible despite my friend's limited resources. Was this luck? Was it chance? I tell you, it was the perfect operation of law. My friend had planted the seed in consciousness through her 1 minute practice. She had selected a different state, the state of being the owner of this type of home, and her outer reality reshaped itself to conform to this inner selection. The circumstances that brought about this manifestation appeared natural, even coincidental. This is always the case. The bridge of incidents leads from your current state to the fulfillment of your desire will appear perfectly natural when viewed from the outside. It is only when you understand the law of consciousness that you recognize these coincidences as the orderly fulfillment of what you have established in imagination. As we draw out towards the conclusion of our time together, I want to emphasize that this principle I have shared with you, the principle of the 1 minute imaginal act, is not for special occasions or dramatic transformations. It is meant to be the normal, natural way you approach every aspect of your life. Just as you would not attempt to drive from New York to Los Angeles without first establishing Los Angeles as your destination, so you should not move through life without first establishing in consciousness the states you wish to occupy. Your 1 minute practice is simply the means by which you establish these states, planting the seeds that must grow into manifestation. Some will say that this approach to life is impractical, that it ignores the hard realities of existence. To them, I say what you call hard realities are merely the hardened impressions of past thoughts and assumptions. They appear solid and immutable only because you continue to grant them reality through your attention and belief. When you shift your attention to the feeling of your wish fulfilled, even for 1 minute of complete immersion, you have begun the process of dissolving these hardened impressions and replacing them with the impression of your new assumption. And since impression is followed by expression, as surely as summer follows spring, your outer world must reshape itself to express this new impression. Do not be discouraged if the full manifestation of your desire does not appear immediately following your 1-minute practice. Remember the fig tree which did not wither in the moment of Jesus' word, but had changed from the roots, a change that became visible the following day. Your imaginal act may likewise be working from the roots, reshaping circumstances that are not yet visible to your physical senses. The interval between your imaginal act and its fulfillment in the outer world is a period for faith. Not the faith that hopes or wishes, but the faith that knows with certainty that what has been established in consciousness must objectify itself in experience. This faith is not belief in something that may or may not happen. It is the deep knowing that creation is finished, that what you have felt as real in consciousness is already a fact and the only reality that matters. As you leave this gathering tonight, I urge you to put this principle into immediate practice. Select a desire, something you truly want to be, to do, or to have. Create a brief scene that would imply the fulfillment of this desire. Then tonight, before you sleep, take just 1 minute to enter fully into this scene, to feel its reality with all the power of your emotional being. Do not approach this as a test of the principle for doubt, and testing imply the possibility of failure. Instead, approach it with the innocent wonder of a child who knows that what is imagined with complete faith is already in the process of becoming reality. 1 minute properly employed in the feeling of the wish fulfilled contains within it the power to transform your life in ways that may now seem miraculous or impossible. For in that 1 minute, you are engaging the creative power of the universe, your own wonderful human imagination, and directing it consciously towards the fulfillment of your desire. And when you truly understand and apply this principle, you will know the truth of the scripture: all things are possible to him that believeth. For belief in its deepest sense is not intellectual acceptance, but emotional surrender to the reality of that which is not yet seen with the physical eye. Take your 1 minute tonight and plant the seed of a new reality in the fertile soil of your consciousness. Nurture it with the waters of faith. Not the faith that hopes, but the faith that knows. And watch as the universe rearranges itself to accommodate your new concept of self, your new assumption of what is possible. For even the impossible will manifest for you when you have properly directed the creative power of your consciousness, even if that direction occupies but a single minute of perfect imaginative control. In that minute lies the key to freedom, to fulfillment, to the conscious creation of a life that reflects your highest desires. The choice is yours. The power is yours. The 1 minute is yours. Use it lyingly. Use it with complete faith in the creative power of your own wonderful human imagination. And prepare yourself for miracles, not as rare and unusual events, but as the natural expression of properly directed consciousness. For this is the promise in the law: as within, so without; as above, so below. What you establish in consciousness through your 1 minute imaginal act must manifest in your world. It cannot fail, for consciousness is the only reality, and its expression in the outer world is governed by immutable law. Go now in the knowledge of your own creative power. Take your 1 minute, and with it, reshape your world. For even the impossible will manifest for you when you understand and apply this simple yet profound truth. Imagination creates reality, and a single minute of properly directed imagination contains within it the power to transform your life beyond all current limitation. Remember always that you are not a helpless victim of circumstances, but the creative center of your own existence. In your consciousness, in your I am, lies the power that fashioned the universe. Use this power consciously. Use it lovingly. Use it faithfully, and watch as even the impossible becomes your living experience. For when you know that you are the operant power in your universe, that your consciousness is God in action, you will never again be content to live at the mercy of circumstances or to accept limitations that can be transcended through the proper direction of your wonderful human imagination. Take your 1 minute tonight, feel the wish fulfilled, and step boldly into the unlimited potential that is your divine inheritance as a conscious creator in this magnificent universe.